Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Americas. I'm Jeannie Godula. Let's take a look at what's coming up in today's show. More big wins for Donald Trump on Super Tuesday. We'll try and find out just what it is voters like about the brash billionaire. Apple's showdown with the FBI reaches the U.S. Congress. That's after it refused to unseal information on an iPhone used by one of two attackers who left 14 dead in California last year. And tourists in Panama City are now being shown around by former gangsters who once robbed visitors themselves on the same turf. This week saw the most pivotal day in the U.S. presidential campaign so far, Super Tuesday. Both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton had big wins with 7 states each. But with Republican Ted Cruz and Democrat Bernie Sanders still hot on their heels, the party's nominations are not decided yet. We'll focus now on Republican frontrunner Donald Trump and the question, just what is it about him that so many Americans seem to like? Is it his money, his frank way of talking, or just that he is the polar opposite of the current president, Barack Obama? Here's more now from the southern state of Georgia with Julia Seeger.
The message is loud and clear. In Georgia, some residents have placed the Confederate flag in front of their homes, a symbol of racial segregation, and some even argue of white supremacy. Jeremy makes dozens of these flags in his basement every day. He says demand for them is soaring.
People want change. People don't like the way things were for the last 7 years under Obama. So they're going to go in completely opposite of that because we see which way we've gone for the last 7 years, and it's not good.
Jeremy insists the Confederate flag is first linked to a Southern heritage rather than racism. But quickly his discourse turns to immigration issues.
Immigration, period, is an issue. We don't mind people coming over. We don't mind people visiting. It's when they overstay their allotted time and they just don't leave and then they become illegal. That becomes a problem.
Like Jeremy, a majority of people here support Donald Trump or Ted Cruz. And oddly enough, today some local Republicans have decided to meet in a Mexican restaurant.
A huge wall. It's going to be beautiful, and the Mexicans are going to pay for it.
And while GOP supporters agree on immigration issues, they're divided on how to handle the economy.
Was Ted Cruz.
You're all friends in here. I hope we leave friends.
Trump is a conservative. He's a businessman. So he knows how to make money. He knows how to create jobs.
14 million jobs were created under Obama, but mainly white-collar jobs. So industrial cities like Dalton have been severely hit by the economic downturn. It's become the 10th poorest city in America. Here, Donald Trump is very popular. Many feel cheated. They say Obama didn't deliver on his electoral promises.
We still got poverty. We still got kids that go to school that don't have a meal.
And there's also this feeling that America is no longer the first world power.
America's kind of lost its respect in the world stage. I'm not really that feared by the Russians anymore, and I don't know, I think we need somebody that can stand up to Putin. And
Jenny, the barmaid, hears these arguments every day, but she has a whole different take on the situation.
I think that people are disappointed with Obama because Obama's black, and America's a racist country. I think that Obama's doing the best he can after what Bush handed him.
After Georgia, Republicans are gearing up for Kentucky's first Republican presidential caucus on March 5th.
Other news now from the U.S., and Apple has brought its battle with the FBI to Congress. The FBI says it just needs the company to help pick the lock of an iPhone owned by one of the shooters in last year's massacre in San Bernardino, California. But Apple won't do it, saying it's every American's privacy that's at stake. Josh Fardy reports.
A legal tussle between a global tech giant and the FBI has arrived at U.S. Congress. Apple refused the court order issued in February demanding they help the FBI decrypt an iPhone handset belonging to one of the attackers from the San Bernardino shooting in December. Company CEO Tim Cook said the action would threaten Apple customers' rights, setting a dangerous precedent with wide repercussions for privacy and data security. Apple's chief counsel says the company is in an arms race with criminals, cyber terrorists and hackers, and that allowing anyone the key to their encryption would be a mistake.
The FBI has asked a court to order us to give them something that we don't have, to create an operating system that does not exist. The reason it doesn't exist is because it would be too dangerous.
US government authorities say encryption limits the amount of evidence that law enforcement agencies can gather.
But in any criminal investigation, a competent investigator would try and use all lawful tools to get access to that device. And that's what you see happening in San Bernardino. The San Bernardino case is about that case. It obviously highlights the broader issue, and of course it'll be looked upon by other judges and other litigants, but it is about the case.
The FBI has invoked the 1789 All Writs Act, which allows federal courts to issue any necessary orders if no other tools are available. Apple has refused to comply, and both sides have urged Congress to create new legislation more suited to the modern issue of data encryption.
We'll head now to Bolivia with a story that could have come straight out of a Latin American telenovela. The president, Evo Morales, has just found out that the son he thought died as a baby is alive. Morales fathered the child out of wedlock with ex-girlfriend Gabriela Zapata, who told him the baby didn't survive. But after the ex-girlfriend was arrested on corruption charges last week, her aunt claimed the child was not dead at all, but alive. Claire Williams has more.
What happened to Ernesto Fidel, the love child of a president and his former girlfriend? That's the question Bolivians want the answer to. The president, Evo Morales, says his ex-lover, Gabriela Zapata, told him their son had died as a baby. But now her aunt and lawyer are claiming the boy is alive and well.
Why conceal him from me? What is the motivation behind it, if he's alive? I ask the family members, his supposed aunt, that they bring him to me. I want to see him. If his family allows it, I want to be reunited with the child.
According to these certificates, the pair had a child together in 2007. Zapata was 21 and Morales was 48. The now 28-year-old Zapata is behind bars, while prosecutors investigate allegations she used her influence with Morales on behalf of a Chinese engineering group. While she was working at CAMC, the firm obtained government contracts worth $560 million. In the same weekend, Zapata was arrested. Her aunt told the media Ernesto Fidel was alive. Bolivia's Minister of Transparency says she believes the timing of the so-called revelations are no coincidence.
Si este niño no existe,
if this boy doesn't exist, it means that as the investigation starts, Ms. Zapata is lying to the Bolivian people and hopes to divert attention away from the facts that have been reported to the Public Prosecutor's Office.
Morales lost a referendum last month, not long after a reporter broke the story about Zapata's senior position at the Chinese firm and the government's business dealings with it. If Morales had won, he would have been allowed to run for re-election in 2019. In what's now become his final presidential term, Bolivians are asking, did he mislead the country, or was he misled?
Now, in Guatemala, a group of indigenous women used as sex slaves during the 1980s Civil War are seeking $3 million in damages. Their demand comes after a court last week convicted 2 men, a retired Army officer and a civilian with links to the Army. The historic verdict marks the first time sexual slavery perpetrated during a conflict has been prosecuted in the country where the crimes took place and not in an international court. All right, we'll wrap up now in Panama with a curious new tour that's become a big draw. It's called a Fortaleza, or Fortress Tour, and it gives visitors an inside look at Panama City's Old Town. But just a few years ago, that area was still dangerous territory used by gangs. And several former gangsters who used to rob tourists themselves are the guides. Catherine Clifford reports.
This group of tourists are visiting the historic quarter of Panama City, the Casco Antiguo, a stroll through winding cobbled streets that just a decade ago would have been impossible.
Any person living in the building would come down and would steal their belongings, their camera, their phone, their wallet.
And this tour guide knows what he's talking about. Alexis Montenegro himself used to be a member of the Ciudad de Dios gang. Back then, the old town was plagued by violence and drugs and ruled by gangs. On his tours, Alexis pulls out colourful personal stories about the neighbourhood from his past.
Gun in hand, they went up to shoot him, to steal his drugs and his money.
Alexis has turned over a new leaf, and with several other ex-gangsters, he's created a tour company specialising in visits to Panama's once dangerous neighbourhoods, a concept which intrigues tourists.
I thought it was very interesting to see the process these people have gone through. They've gone from being part of a gang to finding a way to be productive for society, while accepting the change taking place in their community and choosing to be a part of it.
Resources were poured into giving Casco Antiguo its new facade. Private investors restored crumbling buildings, and municipal authorities repaved the cobbled streets. However, as the neighbourhood improves and prices increase, many of the original, poorer residents are forced to relocate. Now, the only visible sign of the neighbourhood's past, a few tags that remain on its walls.
Well, that's all the time we have for this Inside the Americas. We'll see you next week for all the news from north to south.